How well does AI understand autism? Large language models are trained on huge amounts of data. My assumption is they essentially read all the publicly available data on the internet. But autism is not particularly well understood in mainstream culture. Does AI make all the same mistakes that everyone else does? Or does it do better than your average person in filtering through and understanding all the information? Let's find out. Hi everyone, Paul Micallef here from Autism from the Inside. I make weekly videos sharing the human side of autism, so make sure you hit subscribe to get the latest content. So we know autism is a bit of a difficult concept to wrap your head around, and it's not particularly well understood in mainstream culture. So today I'm asking AI 3 questions and then evaluating the quality of its answers. What is autism? What is neurodiversity? And finally, how would an autistic self-advocate describe autism? And then we'll assess the quality of its answers and see if it makes the same mistakes that a lot of people make. So what's your prediction? Is there enough accurate, publicly available information for large language models to get the answer right? Or is it just going to spit out outdated stereotypes? So the first question I asked is the very basic, what is autism? Let's see what it has to say.
Autism, also known as autism spectrum disorder, ASD, is a lifelong neurological and developmental condition that affects how a person interacts with others, communicates, learns, and behaves. It's considered a spectrum disorder because the signs and symptoms, and the severity of those symptoms, vary widely from person to person. Here are some key aspects of autism. Core characteristics: challenges with social communication and interaction. This can include difficulties with understanding and using nonverbal cues, like eye contact, gestures, facial expressions, initiating and maintaining conversations, understanding social rules and unspoken expectations, sharing interests or emotions with others, developing and maintaining friendships, restricted interests and repetitive behaviors. This may manifest as repetitive movements or speech, e.g., hand flapping, rocking, repeating words or phrases, called echolalia, strong adherence to routines, and intense distress at changes, highly focused or intense interests in specific topics, unusual reactions to sensory input, e.g., being overly sensitive to certain sounds, lights, or textures, or seeking out particular sensory experiences. Important considerations: developmental condition. Symptoms typically appear in early childhood, often before the age of 3, and can last throughout a person's life. Brain differences. Autism is caused by differences in brain development. While the exact causes are not fully understood, scientists believe a combination of genetic and environmental factors plays a role, not a disease. Autism is not an illness to be cured. The goal is to provide support and strategies to help individuals thrive, build on their strengths, and manage any challenges they may face. Neurodiversity. Many in the autistic community view autism as a form of neurodiversity, meaning it's a natural variation in the human brain, bringing unique strengths and perspectives. Varying support needs. Some autistic individuals may require significant support in their daily lives, while others can live independently with minimal support. Co-occurring conditions. It's common for autistic individuals to also experience other conditions, such as anxiety, depression, ADHD, or sleep disorders. Understanding autism involves recognizing the diverse ways it presents, appreciating the unique strengths and challenges of each individual, and fostering inclusive environments that support autistic people.
Okay, so that wasn't too bad. I mean, the question itself was extremely broad. So, what is autism is not a very easy question to answer. It was definitely fairly stereotypical in terms of the way it described symptoms in the kind of deficit model that we're used to seeing. But at the same time, acknowledging variation in support needs, acknowledging neurodiversity, acknowledging it's not a disease and that there are lots of different strengths and challenges. That's not too bad overall. It's basically providing a relatively up-to-date, fairly medical version of the answer to what is autism. Next, we have the question of what is neurodiversity? Let's see if it does any better with this one.
Neurodiversity is a concept that asserts that there is a natural and valuable variation in how human brains are wired and how they function. It proposes that neurological differences, such as those seen in autism, ADHD, dyslexia, dyspraxia, and Tourette's syndrome, are not deficits or disorders to be cured, but rather are part of the spectrum of human diversity, much like variations in ethnicity, gender, or sexual orientation. Here are the core tenets of neurodiversity. Brain variation is natural and normal. Just as there's a wide range of physical characteristics in humans, there's also a wide range of neurological configurations. There's no single correct way for a brain to work. Challenges often arise from societal expectations and lack of accommodation. Rather than viewing neurodivergent individuals as inherently broken, the neurodiversity paradigm suggests that many of the difficulties they face stem from a society that is primarily designed for neurotypical brains. For example, a person with sensory sensitivities might struggle in a noisy, brightly lit office, but thrive in a quieter, more controlled environment. Focus on strengths and unique perspectives. Neurodiversity encourages recognizing and valuing the unique strengths and talents that often accompany neurodivergent ways of thinking. For example, some autistic individuals may have exceptional attention to detail or pattern recognition, while some with ADHD may possess remarkable creativity or hyperfocus on interests. Advocacy for inclusion and acceptance. The neurodiversity movement, which originated in the autistic self-advocacy community in the late 1990s, coined by Australian sociologist Judy Singer, aims to promote societal acceptance, respect, and equal opportunities for all neurotypes. It advocates for accommodations and adjustments in education, employment, and public spaces to create more inclusive environments. Key distinctions. Neurodiversity is the broad concept that all human brains are diverse. Neurodivergent describes an individual whose brain functions in ways that diverge significantly from the dominant societal norm, e.g., autistic, ADHD, dyslexic. Neurotypical describes individuals whose brain functions fall within the range considered typical or mainstream. In essence, neurodiversity is a paradigm shift that encourages moving away from a purely medical model of disability, which often focuses on fixing or curing differences, towards a social model, where disability is understood as arising from societal barriers and lack of accommodation. It promotes the idea that all brains are valuable and contribute to the richness of human experience.
Okay, so I'm reasonably impressed with that actually. In terms of trying to explain neurodiversity in general terms, it hits on most of the key things, especially around the reframe from the medical model of disability to the social model, looking at the way that brains are different, not necessarily broken. So some of those things are pretty consistent with how I would normally describe it as well. It also mentions that a key part of the whole neurodiversity paradigm is the focus on strengths, is the focus on different but not defective. There are strengths in that diversity, and therefore we need to find a way to accommodate and include people. So overall, I think that was a fairly satisfactory answer. Now the one that's probably going to be a little bit more challenging. How would an autistic self-advocate describe autism?
From the perspective of an autistic self-advocate, autism is not a disease to be cured, but an inherent and integral part of their identity and how their brain is wired. It's about a different way of experiencing the world. Here's how an autistic self-advocate might describe autism, often using identity-first language, autistic person, instead of person with autism, because it acknowledges autism as a fundamental aspect of who they are. What autism is: a neurotype, a natural variation. It's a way of being, a different operating system for the brain. Just like there's diversity in gender, race, or sexuality, there's neurodiversity, and autism is a part of that, an identity. Being autistic isn't something separate from them. It shapes how they perceive, process, and interact with the world. It's often seen as a core part of their identity, a different way of thinking. Autistic brains often process information differently, which can lead to unique strengths and challenges. This might involve detailed or literal thinking, focusing on specific details, taking things at face value, pattern recognition, excellent at seeing patterns and systems, systemizing, a strong drive to understand and build systems, deep interests, special interests/spins, a passionate and intense focus on specific topics, leading to deep knowledge and expertise, different sensory experiences. Autistic people often have different sensory profiles, meaning they might be highly sensitive, hypersensitive, to certain sights, sounds, textures, smells, or tastes, or less sensitive, hyposensitive, to others. This can lead to sensory overload or sensory seeking. Different communication and social styles. Direct communication. Often prefer honest, literal, and straightforward language, sometimes being perceived as blunt by neurotypical people. Different social cues. May not instinctively understand or use typical nonverbal social cues like eye contact or certain body language. Echolalia/scripting, repeating words or phrases, or scripting conversations, which can be a form of communication or self-regulation. Monotropism, a tendency to focus attention intensely on one thing at a time, which can make switching tasks or engaging in small talk challenging. What autism isn't: a disease or illness. It's not something that needs to be cured or eradicated. A person with autism, often. Many self-advocates prefer autistic person, because it emphasizes that autism is an inseparable part of their identity, not an affliction they have. A lack of empathy, often. While they may process emotions differently or express empathy in non-typical ways, many autistic people experience deep empathy, especially for other neurodivergent individuals or animals. The concept of the double empathy problem suggests that communication breakdown happens between neurotypes, not just because one group lacks empathy. A singular experience. If you've met one autistic person, you've met one autistic person. The spectrum is incredibly broad, and every autistic individual has a unique profile of strengths and challenges. Challenges from an autistic perspective. Many challenges faced by autistic people are seen as arising from a mismatch between their neurology and a neurotypical centric world, rather than inherent deficits of autism itself. These might include social camouflaging/masking, the exhausting effort to hide their autistic traits to fit into neurotypical society, often leading to burnout and mental health issues. Sensory overwhelm. Environments not designed for sensory differences can be incredibly distressing and disabling, e.g., bright lights, loud noises, strong smells. Misunderstanding and stigma. Being judged, misunderstood, or discriminated against due to a lack of awareness and acceptance from neurotypical society. Executive function differences, challenges with planning, organizing, task initiation, and flexibility, which can impact daily life. Mental health co-occurring conditions, higher rates of anxiety, depression, and trauma due to societal pressures and invalidation. Strengths from an autistic perspective. Autistic self-advocates highlight numerous strengths that come with their neurotype. Honesty and directness, a refreshing straightforwardness in communication, loyalty and integrity, often deeply principled and reliable. Attention to detail, noticing things others miss. Deep focus/hyperfocus, the ability to concentrate intensely on areas of interest, leading to expertise and productivity. Problem solving, unique ways of thinking that can lead to innovative solutions. Authenticity, a strong desire to be true to themselves. Systemizing ability, excellent at understanding, analyzing, and building systems. Ultimately, an autistic self-advocate would describe autism as a fundamental part of their being, offering unique perspectives and abilities, while also acknowledging the very real challenges that often arise from a world not yet fully adapted to neurodiversity. They advocate for acceptance, understanding, and accommodations, so autistic people can thrive as their authentic selves.
All right, so there was a lot in that. I was kind of surprised at the amount that was correctly kind of mentioned, especially around the focus on neurodiversity, the focus on strengths, the focus on the fact that society is not built for us and that is the source of a lot of autistic challenges. It mentioned sensory experiences, which is obviously a key thing. It didn't mention stimming at all, which I thought was curious. I'm happy to see that the double empathy problem scored a mention. Again, busting the myth that autistic people don't have empathy. It clearly said that a lot of us experience deep empathy. It also picked up on the fact that most autistic advocates view autism as a core part of their identity, focusing on the unique perspectives and abilities and calling for acceptance and understanding. My version of that is don't force me to fit in, include me while I'm different. So again, given how broad the prompt was that I used, how would an autistic advocate describe autism? I thought the answer was overall extremely detailed and hit on a lot of the key points. So what does that mean? Does that mean AI understands autism better than your average person? Does that mean the tides are really turning and the autistic self-advocates are getting their message out there in the broader community? Does it mean we're finally getting to the stage where there is good, easily accessible information out there for people to find? I kind of hope so. I'm still a little bit skeptical. There's clearly a lot of work that's yet to be done. And there's a big difference between having publicly accessible information and having that filter through to decision makers and the wider culture in general so that we can be more included. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed that today. Please leave a comment letting me know what you think. If you'd like me to test how AI does with regard to other common autism myths, let me know that in the comments as well, and maybe I can do a follow-up video. Otherwise, thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed today's video, and I will see you again next week. Bye.